What's up guys, it's Cobalt here and welcome back to another video. In case you have not heard the news, I am returning as the Littlest Pet Shop brand ambassador for the year of 2025 and I am so incredibly excited and grateful for this opportunity and privilege, and obviously I really gotta thank you guys because if it weren't for all of your support I would not be here right now. So if you don't know what being an LPS brand ambassador entitles, essentially the company that now owns Littlest Pet Shop, Basic Fun, sends me and the other ambassadors products and we make a video reviewing one of them every month in partnership with the company. So before I actually get the chance to publish any of those videos, I wanted to make this video and talk about some of the pets and some of the things that are coming in Wave 3, along with just generally some things that I felt it was important to talk about. Because I want to make it very clear, obviously when Basic Fun sends me things, I am very grateful and very excited because I love Littlest Pet Shop and I love getting free stuff, and this is both of that. But sometimes the LPS don't exactly look up to par or aren't exactly my style, so obviously there's critiques that I can give and that I do give every time I unbox and review one of these sets. I also like to do my review videos in a way where I am mostly just establishing everything, giving a little bit of my opinion, but mostly giving you guys the freedoms to form your own opinions and start a conversation down below in the comments, and that's exactly what I want you guys to do with this video as well. The last thing I want to make very clear is that there is absolutely nothing in our contracts that say that we have to be nice about what Basic Fun sends us. We are perfectly free to critique as much as we want, but I do think that it is important to give said critiques and constructive feedback with respect, because that is the best and most efficient way to get your point across and hopefully get Basic Fun to listen to us to make the changes that are definitely necessary. And I'm not a sellout either, I'm going to speak my mind no matter the situation. So I have finally gone through every single set that they've sent me for the next couple of months, unboxed them all, and I actually have all of the new main 5 pets in my possession now, and I wanted to sit down and make this video to talk about some changes that I think need to be made with them. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. First up, I will be talking about the Cocker Spaniels because this LPS I have already posted my unboxing video up on my channel, and she was the first officially released main 5 LPS. Obviously mine has some clear errors going on with her, and I would not have encountered that problem if it wasn't for the packaging style that this LPS came in. So before the set rolls away, you can see that this is a Target exclusive, fully encased giant blind box essentially, and you can see all the sets you can get here on the back, but it is of course not a true blind box because each of these sets has a paw color corresponding to which set you could possibly get. And obviously I understand that in a lot of ways the toy market is pushing for blind boxes, but personally I kind of hate this, not only because I think that the tube sets are really cute as new in-box sets, but also blind boxes should be very low stakes. A standard LPS blind box will set you back $3 to $5 US, whereas these tubes are about $10, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to get pets that are in perfect condition. So when you're spending that much money and hoping to get 3 LPS out of your set, I would hope that you would actually want them to, you know, look good, and it is not guaranteed with this one. Obviously this LPS here could have looked a lot worse, but she also could have looked a lot better. Before I actually go more in depth to talking about the set, I do have some good news because one of the sets that Basic Fun sent me is this one. It is another pet tube, but this time not in a blind box style. There's the Cocker Spaniel right there. She looks pretty good, so there is hope. I'm gonna guess that for whatever reason this one is Target exclusive and will stay that way, and hopefully the other one will be available in all of the other stores, but as of right now I'm not entirely sure, although I will be inquiring about all of this in our next meeting with Basic Fun. In addition to that, I have one other thing that's a little bit disappointing and strange to me, and that is this set right here, another blind box with another colored paw, and this is a blind box for the pet pairs. As you can see, the packaging style is honestly really cute. It's like a little house. You can see all of the pets you can collect here on the back, and I will be talking about this Cocker Spaniel and Collie down here in a minute, but there's also a normal packaging style for the pet pairs. It's exactly the same. You can get all of the pets you can get in the blind box version with this normal version. Obviously this has already been opened, but I just wanted to show you that both versions exist, and I don't really understand why, but for now I can just assume and speculate that maybe Basic Fun is testing the waters with these 2 different packaging styles, but I really hope that the blind box version goes away and blind boxes and blind bags stay where they belong. Alright, so with all that out of the way, obviously I have already discussed this Cocker Spaniel, but I have not actually talked about this one yet. She is the one that comes in the pet pairs, theirs, and I was super excited for this pet, but I am really not happy at all with the way that she looks, and I think I got a pretty bad looking one, and ultimately I just think she looks a lot worse than this pet. I'm not really loving the way her eyes look, but something I do want to point out is that this one has the flatter eyes and this one's eyes are very round, so maybe Basic Fun has listened to me a little bit with some of these pets, which is kind of cool to see. But again, the execution of this one just is not great. Her eyes are incredibly grainy, and the paint, especially on this orange detailing on mine, is very thin, and a lot of that all stems from the fact that she's supposed to have gradients on her, very subtle gradients or airbrushing, but it just comes across as really messy and honestly really dirty, especially with these really speckly bits right here. And anytime an eye is printed over a gradient piece, it just becomes even more grainy than it would be already. I think with this Cocker Spaniel in particular, it is also a lot clearer that she is a remold. All of these pets are remolds. They all say 2024 on the bottom as proof of that, but just looking at her face, I feel like something looks a lot more off than it does with this LPS right here. And I think that's purely just because of the way that she's designed, but I want to do a comparison with an actual Cocker Spaniel that I have right here. So first thing about this Cocker Spaniel, his neck peg is a little bit busted, so his head sits lower than it would anyways, but even with that, her head is a lot higher up because she has a longer neck in her actual mold, and that's something you'll see with a lot of these pets is they all have longer necks, they're all a little bit taller, and their heads are all a little bit bigger and rounder. The bottom of her head is very flat, where this one still has a little bit of a rounded curve to the bottom of his head. He has more defined cheeks and more of a chin, and this one really does not. Obviously, the marking around the face really helps with that, but even if I bring this pet back out who has a similar marking, you can see that her chin is not as defined or low. Their ear molds are still pretty much the same, but again, this one just appears to have less definition in the sculpt, and that is also a problem that we frequently see with remolds. Their bodies are pretty much the same, but this one has a seam going through the middle of her body where this one does not. And again, here is a side comparison. You will also notice that their side profiles appear quite different. Even though this one is just generally taller, she appears to have a larger forehead, and this one's snout sort of sticks out more at an L-shaped angle, where this one is more of a curve and not as harsh. Hopefully all of that makes sense, and hopefully you can see what I'm trying to demonstrate here, but it's also just a lot more apparent when you're holding them in real life. You can also see that this one has pretty defined eyebrow lines, where this one really doesn't at all. They're kind of there, but they're very unnoticeable. I have also compared all these pets to their fake counterparts, and these remolds don't even match the fake LPS either, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Now let's move on to the Collie, because this is another LPS that comes in a pet pair. I don't really think that I got a very good looking Collie. Again, it has the problem that the Cocker Spaniel had, where one of the eyes is extremely grainy because of the gradient on his face. The other one isn't as bad, but I am not a huge fan of that. I also don't really like the execution of this one's design. If I pull up the original promotional photo, I think that it looks so much cuter there, but for some reason I feel like this one's design got lost in translation, and it looks like he has a weird receding hairline, and none of the gradients really came out. I'm gonna say this in pretty much every G7 video from this point, but I really think that Basic Fun should start staying away from gradient designs because they just clearly do not have the technology to make them look good. Some pets definitely do look good with the gradients, but most of them just fall flat, and this is definitely one that does. This really harsh dark color on the top of its head just looks so strange, and I don't really understand what this design is going for. If this dark part was completely removed and we just looked at it like this, I think that it looks super cute. I really love the dark ears, and the gradient doesn't bother me as much, but when we see it back, it just looks weird to me. Maybe the design will grow on me a little bit more, but for now, I'm not a huge fan. The Collie also seems to have a wider stance with the base, and maybe that's to help it stand up a little bit. My Collie also has a little bit of a stiff head for some reason, but obviously this one is based off of the only paw-up Collie mold-wise, so I think it's interesting that Basic Fun has chosen to bring back the paw-up Collies instead of the normal standing Collies, but I'll also be comparing it to a standing Collie in a moment. But yeah, again, you can see that this one's face just feels fuller, and it's a lot more pronounced here on the front of the cheek, where the front of this one's cheeks are a lot flatter, but I do feel like this mold looks a little bit closer than the Cocker Spaniels did. Here you can see the side profile. Again, this one's side profile is very strange. The way that it swoops down kind of points down, where this one swoops and then his nose points a little bit more up, and it's just a lot more of a flattering look. This one's head is slightly taller, but it is not as apparent as the Cocker Spaniels or some of the other pets that I will show you in a moment. You can also see that once again, this one has a new seam on its body that the original one does not have right here. That goes all the way down the middle of the body and around the tail. You can also see how the body has changed a little bit. This one's back legs are actually way wider. This one's are closer together. But if we go back to the front in a moment, I just feel like this one's front stance has changed a little bit as well, but it's hard to say. Here's another collie for comparison, more specifically with the head. You can see that this one's nose and mouth are a lot more defined. This one, they are very clean and very sharp. You can really see the sculpt of the mouth, where this one sort of gets lost in the paint there. And again, much rounder cheeks. It's a bit hard to see on camera once again, so apologies for that. But this one's face just feels very flat. If I sort of get this angle, you can see how the cheek sort of protrudes here at the front. Here, it really does not at all. And again, these are all problems that are pretty much apparent with every single main 5 pet that I'm going to show you. So now let's move on to the Great Dane. Personally, when comparing molds, I think that the Great Dane is actually done the best, but I am pretty disappointed that this design is a remake of 2 LPS that already exist, and I'm sure you know which ones. I also really don't like the fact that this spot here is a total different color than all of his other markings. It's very obvious and just looks so strange. It's a much more of a white, where all of the rest of his markings are more of a cream. So here is my comparison here. You can definitely see that his head is bigger. His paws look a little bit different compared to this one, but it's not a huge notice. I think that this one's eyes look pretty good, and his cheeks actually do stick out if you look at this quarter angle. But again, it's more on the side, where the side profile just doesn't look that great. Clearly see the difference here. This one's head is also slightly taller, but again, his head and neck is not a huge issue, so luckily that is not a problem at all. So I'm more so disappointed in just the overall design of this pet than the mold. I think the mold is serviceable, and there's not really too many problems I have with it, especially if you didn't have a single authentic G1 Great Dane in your collection. I think that this one looks pretty close. And even though his design is a remake and that disappoints me, it is well done, so it's not a huge waste. Whereas even though I don't think that the mold of the collie is terrible, I'm not really a huge fan of the design, so that makes me a little bit more iffy on it. Whereas the short hair cat molds that I will be showing you last are painfully obvious. They are remolds and do not match the original short hairs at all. But before we get to that, we gotta talk about the Doxins. So here is the Doxin. Right off the bat, her major issue is that her head and neck do not sit flush against each other. There is a huge gap where you can actually see the peg, which looks super strange. Aside from that though, I think her mold looks perfectly fine, and I really like her eyes. Although again, going back to the gradient issue, he has that problem there. Eyes are grainier than they should be, purely because of the gradient, and the gradient just looks a little bit strange, just like it does on the collie. As for a comparison, these very clear lumps or ridges on the head of the original Doxin are a lot less defined on the new one. The body once again has slightly different seams. This one has a seam going down bottom of her body that this one does not have, and I'm all for getting rid of seams like that, but it is just a little bit weird. Drawing attention back to this side profile really quickly, you can once again see that her snout shape and the way that it angles up is very strange, especially when comparing it to this one. The back of this one's head also sticks out a lot more, where this one just appears kind of flat on the back of her head. But if her neck was fully flush with her body, I don't think it would be so bad. But now let's talk about our short hair cats. From the back, they don't look awful, but you can still see that there are clearly things that are different about them. And then we spin them around, and you can see, for starters, they have the same issue as the Dachshund with the heads and the necks and seeing the neck peg through them. I think this one might even be a little bit worse than the orange short hair cat, but personally, I think the orange short hair cat's face is a lot worse because of her dark eyes. It just makes her look very strange. Even though, don't get me wrong, I love the color of her eyes, I love the quality of her eyes, and the little symbols in both of the eyes are super cute, but neither of them have very much white space in their eyes, which just makes them look very empty and void of personality, which is really disappointing because design-wise, I actually do really love the designs of both of these cats. From somebody who has no idea what main 5 pets are, never seen them, never played with them, I'm very curious to hear what those people's opinions about these cats were, because even not comparing them to the original main 5 short hair cat, they just look a little bit off to me, and I don't know if that's because I've spent so much time looking at short hair cat LPS, but something about them just looks weird even when not comparing them to something. And before I continue to repeat myself, let's actually compare her to an official short hair cat. So this is actually a G1 short hair cat, but I thought this would be a good comparison specifically because their colors are so similar. Once again, you can see that it is taller and the head is a little bit bigger. This one's head shape is the most different from all of the other main 5 remolds, and the biggest thing that I can say is the bottom of her head is a lot more narrow and the top is wider, whereas this one has a narrower top to her head that gets wider at the bottom. Both of them are still a circular shape, but this one is a little bit more rectangular, I suppose. Small on the top, gets wider on the bottom as we go down, where this one seems to get wider at the top as we go up. Her mouth is also less defined, and her ears are longer and pointier. There's not too much to say different about the body, and even if the bodies were pretty changed, I don't think many people would care. And this one, again, has the worst side profile. The back of her head is so flat, and she just looks so weird. Again, more defined cheeks here, rounder head, fuller head. She actually has space in her head for a brain, where I don't really think this one does. And once again, here is the back, and then the second side profile. And this one is also a much better representation of more natural eyes. The color space in her eyes does not need to be this wide, but I think it's important to give her this much white space in her eye that, again, this one really doesn't have, especially in this eye right here. The purple is almost touching her orange plastic. There's very, very little room for whites in her eyes. All right, so that is pretty much all I have to say for now. Again, I wanted to point out my gripes with the pets that I got and give you as clear of a comparison as I possibly could in this video. I have recorded this video after recording all of my unboxing videos because I think it's fun to get my very initial reactions on camera when I do unboxings, especially when it's for products like this that I have never seen before. So if I end up repeating things or seem like I go back on anything that I've said in this video in those future uploads, that is because this was recorded after and I have had more time to sit with my thoughts on all of these pets. But again, like I said in the beginning of the video, I really want to continue this conversation down below in the comments because I think that respectful conversation where we actually sit down and think about things is the best way to actually get a company like Basic Fun to listen to us. Unfortunately, the main people that I work with as a brand ambassador are the marketing team, so even they don't really have a big say on what distributors or manufacturers do, but we are trying to get them to listen to us. And again, respectful and thought out feedback is what we need to actually get people to listen to us, because if you just run in there swords ablazing, like yelling and ranting, nobody is going to listen. But I think it's also especially important in videos like this to actually give a comparison of the new and the old to really see what is wrong about the new one, because all of the pets in this video I feel like have their issues, but if these molds last forever I could live with it. But just like the short hair cat, I really don't understand how this happened, especially because, let me pull out the promotional image again. What happened? How did this get lost in translation so much? I really don't get it. So again, like I also already said, I'm hoping that in our next meeting with Basic Fun I can inquire about all this stuff, but for now I wanted to make this video and show you guys all of the new main 5 pets, and again, give my feedback on all of them. But of course, if you guys like these pets, there is absolutely no shame in that. If you love this new short hair cat and you actually really like the way that her new mold looks, that's totally fine. I'm not going to harass you, and nobody else should harass you for your opinions or how you feel about a little plastic animal toy, because at the end of the day, like I already said, I think it's important not only for me to voice my opinion, but also for you guys to have the space to come up with your own opinions, even if they differ from mine. So hopefully this video is not super long, but I have a feeling that it will be. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys thought it was interesting, and I hope that even though some of these pets are a little bit hit or miss, I hope you are still excited for them, because I'm excited for them. I think it's really cool to see that main 5 pets have finally returned, and in theory I like a lot of these new designs, but in execution I hope that I can find some better looking ones when they actually hit store shelves. So far I haven't seen any of these, but I do believe that some people have been able to get their hands on the blind box pet pairs, so hopefully you will be able to find them as well. I believe for now they are available at Walmart. So keep your eyes peeled, keep on searching, and I will see you all in my next video. Goodbye.